And welcome everyone to a March Madness Championship Week chat. I'm Andy Katz. Pleased to be joined by Dan Gavitt, the Senior Vice President of Basketball of the NCAA from the Selection Committee headquarters in Carmel, Indiana. It is Saturday as we are talking here one day before Selection Sunday. We're all sleep deprived because these games are going late into the night, and we got to keep track of everything. So Dan, with one more day before we go to Selection Sunday, where are we first off with the seed lines? How many lines have been seeded?
We've initially seeded, Andy, 5 seed lines, which is about where we normally are. We would have last year probably gone and seeded the 6th line yesterday. But frankly, there were so many important games that were played yesterday in quarterfinals and semifinals that we paused after the 5 seed line to look at results from yesterday's games, make sure they were taken into consideration with the team's full body of work. And so we'll get back to work on seeding this morning after selecting a few more teams and get back on track to getting that seed list done, released by late tonight, having an initial seed list. And then we've got a bunch of scrubbing to do with that seed list as well. So it can be a busy but productive day.
All right, before we get to the number of teams that are essentially in the field, I like to do this every year. Tell everyone what scrubbing means.
Sure. So the voting is what determines how teams initially go into the seed list. No different, frankly, than the way the teams are selected to the field. But once they're in that initial seed list, then the committee actually starts with the very overall number 1 seed and compares that number 1 seed to the overall number 2 seed, and then 2 versus number 3, 3 versus number 4, and goes literally right down the seed list, comparing one team to another on a head-to-head basis to make sure that they're confident and comfortable with where that team is seated. And they're oftentimes in that scrubbing process where they will vote by majority vote to flip one team over another based on the head-to-head comparison. And that kind of assures that they're very confident in the way the voting went to put teams into the seed list initially.
And also, I mean, there are sometimes that because of bracketing principles, things get moved around a line or two, or, just a matchup based on who could be in the first round or location and so on. All right. So number of teams that are actually in the field. And I know this number changes because there are teams playing in conference tournaments who actually could get the AQ, allowing for a team to actually get in the field. So where are we at with that number and the difference sort of between a bid stealer and a pickup?
Sure. So we have 35 at-larges out of the 36 that have been voted into the field. Now that would make it seem like there's only one team left to choose, and that is true. However, we will choose many more than that because, as you know, among those 35 that are on the at-large board right now are several that will win their conference championships today or tomorrow and become automatic qualifiers, thus opening up another at-large spot. So we have a handful of spots still to put into the field as at-larges. Not 10, but not more than, at least another 4 or 5 as well. And all those selections will be made today by late tonight. The committee always endeavors to have the entire field selected by the time they go to bed on Saturday night. And that may include contingencies, because there may be, a game tomorrow, for example, that would result in a team being in the field if they win their automatic qualifier as a conference champion, or not being in the field if they don't.
It feels like with so many number 1 seeds going down this week that it's sort of indicative of what we've seen in the regular season and what we could see in this NCAA tournament. When that happens, number 1 goes down, and we know there are teams that, didn't have that resume, up until this point. What does that do for the committee when we know there's a team out there that could be a bid stealer that suddenly is in position to potentially get that AQ?
Well, no surprise to fans that watched yesterday. Yesterday was an exciting and disruptive day because there were certainly some upsets, some results that will impact the field, some potential bid stealers. I would say that the bubble that we like to refer to is shrinking. because of some of the upsets in these conference championships. And we may see more of that tonight, tomorrow. So it puts more stress and pressure on the selection process because, you know, when a surefire at-large high seed loses in their conference championship and does not become their automatic qualifier, as you know, that essentially means they've stolen someone else's bid.
The good news is that the tournament is later, which means we are past daylight savings time. How critical is that you know, you don't lose that hour on Sunday?
I think the committee is relieved about that for sure. It's frequent, as you note, that daylight savings time happens on selection weekend, selection Sunday, so we don't have to deal with that at least. But nevertheless, it will be a late night, I'm certain, and an early morning, because tomorrow, of course, you know, we scrub the seed list again, make sure that we're confident with that, put contingencies in place for the 5 championship games that take place tomorrow, should they be necessary, and then start bracketing by, you know, mid to late morning. And I suspect, as we have almost every year, we'll have to have multiple brackets based on contingency of tomorrow's results.
Yeah, last thing on that, Dan, when you have multiple brackets, and that, as you said, it could happen on Sunday, I mean, how ready are they to go based on those results Sunday afternoon?
Well, very ready. You know, we won't start the bracketing process until all seed lists and contingent seed lists are completed. So when we have done that, so let's say, you know, one of the championship games tomorrow afternoon, if one team wins, they would be seated in a certain location. If the other team wins, they would be seated in a different location. That means there's 2 different seed lists, and we'll create 2 different brackets based on the result of that, just that one game. And with multiple games tomorrow, you can imagine that we could have multiple brackets as contingencies before we have to deliver them to our partners at CBS, you know, late tomorrow afternoon for the 6 o'clock show.
All right, awesome. We're headed for a tremendous Saturday and Sunday before selection Sunday night. We can get that bracket in our hands before the NCAA tournament begins Tuesday night in Dayton. Appreciate your time, Dan.
Thanks, Andy. Take care.